I've previously talked about the gray, shades of gray, and the nuances that concern the Middle East. And I promised to discuss some of those. Starting out, I've talked about some of the things that are discussed that are very clear, that are black and white. And I have tried to eliminate the confusion over terms and illustrated how terms are misused and weaponized, such as the term genocide. So I'd like to now get to an issue that is more gray and nuanced and explain how I reconcile it. And that's this whole notion of a Palestinian people. And there are aspects of it having to do with genealogy and history and blood and so forth. But it's a mixed bag, and I don't know that in the final analysis most of that is helpful. But I'm going to come at the end of this with a analysis that I think is useful, and I support the notion of a distinct Palestinian people and recognition of a distinct Palestinian people. We have to start out, though, historically, that there has never been a country or geopolitical entity that was really Palestine. Palestine, going way back historically, was just a region initially known as Syria Palestina. And it goes back to ancient times with the Levantines, or however you say it, excuse me. But none of that is really helpful. It doesn't get us anywhere with the analysis because it was not a country. You can't identify a currency for Gaza or the West Bank because what they use is the Israeli shekel. They didn't have, prior to Israel, they didn't have any governance unique to their people. They didn't have a president, prime minister, or anything like that. There was not a distinct language. There were Jews and there were Arabs. The Jews spoke Hebrew and the Arabs spoke Arabic. The area was really just a region, not different in kind really from Death Valley. And we don't say that people from Death Valley are a distinct people. I saw a video that I thought was interesting. This young Palestinian man making the point that there really is a Palestine, and it is a country, and the proof is the acknowledgement from Golda Meir that she had a Palestinian passport. But it distorts history and takes it out of context, and actually undermines this young man's very point. And the reason is this. When Golda Meir had the Palestinian passport, it was during the period of the British Mandate. And during the period of the British Mandate, the British christened the area Palestine. It was under their control. It was not a separate country. And so they issued passports as being in Palestine. But it wasn't limited to a particular group of people within Palestine, namely Arabs or so-called Palestinians. Anybody who resided there was deemed a Palestinian for purposes of the British Mandate and having a passport. Hence, Golda Meir, who was Jewish and was the first, later on, prime minister, the first woman prime minister of Israel, she had a Palestinian passport. So that doesn't help the Palestinian cause in identifying themselves as a separate people. And I would note also that Golda Meir actually was born in the United States. She was from Milwaukee, and she actually spent some years before going to Israel in my hometown city of Denver, Colorado. So that doesn't really help the point. And then you get to the issue of whether the quote-unquote Palestinians are truly a distinct people. You can make the argument that they are. But here's the fallacy of that argument. You may recall from one of my other videos that the quote-unquote Palestinians in Gaza are actually Egyptian. And that is because Gaza, prior to the 1967 war, was part of Egypt, and it was the Egyptians who lived there. And Egyptians are actually genealogically a distinct people from other Arabs and consider themselves as such. So it becomes, at worst, disingenuous, at best, not helpful to try to ascribe a Palestinian peoplehood to these people who are in reality Egyptians. So I come at it from a very different point. There really was not this idea of this concept of a Palestinian nationhood, a separate Palestinian identity, until after the formation of Israel. And the reality, as I've discussed before, concerning the quote-unquote Palestinians in Egypt and in in Gaza and the West Bank, is that they are, by background, Egyptians and Jordanians, as opposed to this identifiable people called Palestinians. Nevertheless, Israel has existed now for 3/4 of a century. And since then, the Egyptians in Gaza have not been allowed back into Gaza and identify as Palestinians. And the Jordanians in the West Bank have not been allowed back into Jordan, and they identify as Palestinians. And both groups, by virtue of this distinct geopolitical history of the last 3/4 of a century, have developed a distinct culture. Even the dialect of Arabic they speak, I understand, is a little bit different, and they are a distinct culture. For that reason, the geopolitical history since the origin of Israel, I fully embrace treating Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank as a distinct people. And I, for one, do support a two-state solution. And we will get to those videos on a two-state solution.